everybody, my name is Ryan Seneca and I'm here to tell you how a helicopter flies. Now my experience is as a flight paramedic for a helicopter service, and although I don't physically fly the aircraft, I do routinely work around the helicopter and other types of aviation, so it's important for me for safety reasons to understand how they work. So have you ever been sitting on your porch on a summer day and you hear the rumble of a helicopter and you look up and you see it glide across the sky, and you ever wonder, like, how does that thing actually really work? Well, I'm going to get into the basics of how that happens. So a brief history, and I pulled this from a book called How Do Helicopters Work, and it was written by Jennifer Boothroyd. The helicopter was invented in the late 1930s, the helicopter as we know it, and today's helicopters look very similar to that helicopter from the late 1930s, and it functions the same way. It just has a lot more technology added on top of it. So I interviewed Stat Medevac pilot Bill Horner about the main parts of the aircraft and what really makes it fly. And what he said was, although there were over 3,000 parts of the aircraft, it ultimately comes down to these two parts that are vital for it to fly. Everything else is just nice to have. So the main rotor is responsible for the altitude of the aircraft, and it also adjusts the aircraft angle. The tail rotor counteracts the torque force, which I'll get into, and aids in the turning of the helicopter. And this is just a picture of the main rotor in the center of the picture and the tail rotor off to the right. So the main rotor spins horizontally on top of the helicopter, and the blades change pitch to adjust altitude. And what I mean by that is, as the helicopter just turns on the ground, the blades are flat like this, and the blades cut through the air like a knife. They're not creating much downward pressure. So when you change the pitch, the blades will angle, and when the wind hits the blade, it's deflected downwards and causes the aircraft to rise. The rotor system itself can also change its pitch to adjust the aircraft angle, meaning the entire main rotor can tilt either forward or backwards or left or right. And whichever way that's tilting is which way the helicopter is going to start leaning towards. And a helicopter flies based on the opposite direction of what the air pressure it's creating is being directed to. So if the air pressure is being directed downward, the helicopter goes up. This is a picture of a helicopter lifting off, and you can see the amount of pressure it takes for it to lift off. It's actually bending the rotors upwards. So the tail rotor spins vertically on the back of the aircraft, and it counteracts the torque force. And what torque force is if you didn't have a tail rotor on your aircraft and the helicopter was lifting up off the ground and you didn't have that tail rotor to counteract what the main rotor is doing, the force created by the spinning of the main rotor would cause the helicopter to spin with it. So the tail rotor spins in conjunction with the main rotor to counteract that and keep a nice, steady, even flight. The pilot does have the ability to change the pitch in the tail rotor as well, and that's used for left or right steering from the rear of the aircraft. So in conclusion, aircraft movement is based off of air deflection. Whichever way the air is being deflected, the aircraft will move the opposite direction of. The main rotor is responsible for the lift and the angling of the aircraft, and the tail rotor counteracts the torque force and maneuvers the tail. These are the sources that I used for this presentation, so I hope that the next time when you see that helicopter off in the distance flying along, you understand how it's doing that. And I thank you for your time, and I hope you enjoyed this presentation.